there's no way you should let this show go. We're not giving up on you, the Americans out there. This is the Patrick Riggins Show here on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network and locally being broadcast on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. You know, when we left off this last segment, I was kind of railing on the kick them all out, that sort of thing. If you keep listening to this show, we'll let you know who's being a hypocrite and who isn't. I'll go ahead and warn you right now, though, the list of hypocrites is very long, while the list of non-hypocrites is practically non-existent. You see, these politicians can talk all they want, but they can't hide their true colors. Their true selves always come to the surface, and this show is there to catch them. Here's a quick example from a story I have this week. It originates right here in Tennessee. It's about the FCC, and they're looking into allowing cell phone use on commercial airline flights. Now, the FCC is only giving permission. It will be up to the airlines to decide if they want to allow it on their company's planes. So, to give you a little background, a Democrat administration is loosening up the restrictions and allowing private business to decide if they want to allow cell phone usage. Remember that. A Democrat administration. Usually not one to let private companies make their own decisions on anything. But here's the news story. Stateline, Washington, December 12th. U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander, he's a Republican from Tennessee, introduced legislation to prohibit cell phone conversations on commercial airline flights, a possibility the Federal Communications Commission is scheduled to consider. Quote, keeping phone conversations private on commercial flights may not be enshrined in the Constitution, but it is certainly enshrined in common sense, Alexander said. This legislation is about avoiding something nobody wants. Nearly 2 million passengers a day hurtling through space, trapped in 17-inch wide seats, yapping their innermost thoughts. So, it's not enshrined in the Constitution, but that isn't going to stop Senator Alexander. No, sir. And remember, he's a Republican. He's even running for re-election, touting how he's all of a sudden this huge conservative who doesn't want Washington meddling in our affairs. I have a clip of his campaign commercial right here. One of the staffers grabbed it just in case we wanted it, and I think we'll play it. Here's just a clip of his campaign commercial.
If Washington would just adopt some Tennessee common sense, it won't take that long to reduce their meddling and get our country back on track.
So I guess introducing legislation to ban cell phone usage on commercial airline flights, and instead of allowing the companies themselves make that decision, Senator Alexander doesn't consider that meddling. And, he's even got Dianne Feinstein as a co-sponsor on it. They've got a quote from her. Flying on a commercial airline in a confined space, often for many hours, is a unique travel experience that is, candidly, not conducive to numerous passengers talking on cell phones. This bill recognizes the use of cell phones to make calls during flights can be disruptive and irritating to other passengers and will prevent such communications during domestic flights. Also, this legislation, it's called the Commercial Flight Courtesy Act, would prohibit the use of voice communication through cell phones on regularly scheduled commercial flights. And this was come up after the FCC announced it is exploring what type of cell phone use is safe on airplanes. Senator Alexander's legislation mirrors current regulation, and it only applies to commercial airlines, not private charter flights or foreign carriers, unless they're flying between U.S. airports. Oh, and it also exempts federal air marshals and flight crews for official business. Oh, of course, we have to exempt the federal boys. They're working for the government, so they don't have to follow our laws. But Alexander continued, when you stop and think about what we hear now in airport lobbies, babbling about last night's love life, next week's schedule, arguments with spouses, it's not hard to see why the FCC shouldn't allow cell phone conversations on airplanes. So even though the FCC in a Democrat administration wants to let airlines make up their own minds, instead of allowing the market to decide this, Lamar Alexander wants to meddle in the business and tell them what to do. In case you forgot, here's that clip of his campaign ad. He's running this right now.
If Washington would just adopt some Tennessee common sense, it won't take that long to reduce their meddling and get our country back on track.
So his campaign commercial claims he's all for reducing the meddling of Washington, yet here he is introducing legislation that what? Meddles. This is like the government demanding KFC serve hamburgers because people might want that instead of chicken. Senator Lamar Alexander isn't content to let the market dictate what KFC serves. Oh, no. Some people might want a hamburger, but their family wants chicken, so they're stuck eating a dead bird instead of a dead cow. Well, we can't have that. We have to make sure people have the choice of beef instead of chicken. Better make a law requiring beef. That's the same logic. Instead of allowing the airlines to establish their own rules, maybe even charging different rates depending on whether you're sitting in a part of the plane that allows cell phone use or a part that doesn't, instead of allowing the private companies to decide what they want to allow on their planes, no, Lamar Alexander wants to stick the government's nose into their business and tell them what to do. Because he knows best, you see. He knows how you should act. He doesn't think you should have cell phones on planes, so he's going to get a law passed keeping the ban in place no matter what the company may decide to do. Like I said, it's like requiring a chicken-only restaurant to serve beef because he thinks you should. That's it. He wants you to act in a certain way because he knows better. This from a candidate desperately trying to convince voters he's not a Washington insider or a federal government knows best guy. These guys' true colors will always come through. Senator Alexander, he's a big government solutions guy. Just like the rest of those people in government, convinced of their own superiority over us poor citizens out here in flyover land. I want to talk about this real quick before we get to the last break. I'm sure you've heard the news. We've had another shooting, and I've talked about sensationalizing this type of thing over and over, but my words fall on deaf ears. And because of my beliefs of not encouraging these kinds of things, all I'm going to say is it occurred in suburban Denver, and if it affected someone you know, then I'm sure you've received a phone call by now. If it didn't, then your life is the same as it was 5 minutes ago. All you can do by talking about this over and over is give people ideas. If you want some information about that, Google suicide contagion. That'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Same thing happens with big events like a shooting. How is this supposed to make your life any better anyway? How's this helping? Snow in Denver delaying airline flights. Okay, that might affect people here. A shooting at a school, how does that affect me? Why is this news any more than reporting all the shootings and murders that occur every night all around the country? Oh, that's right, we can't sensationalize those, so who cares? Even though it's human beings being killed then too. Even though more people being killed than are killed in this school shooting. Doesn't matter. We can sell advertisers time slots on our network if we show them how much audience we can draw doing news stories like this. They're talking about a kid shot in some back alley in Los Angeles. Psst, who cares? No big story there. Oh, sure, it's another person dead, but that don't mean as much to us. We can't pull ratings talking about them. Hey, we get a school shooting, though. We have to be sure and capitalize on those. Those don't happen just every day, you know. Better run that horse while it's still fresh, still has some legs, and can score us a couple more ratings points. It gets pretty sickening when you think about it enough. We're up on the last break here on the Patrick Riggin Show. When we come back, we'll talk about our old friend, the drone attacks. We've had some more, or one more anyway, that we know of, and we'll talk about that when we come back here on the Patrick Riggin Show on the Libertarian Lighthouse Radio Network.